I'm going to,
myself and let you ladies chat.
okay. All right. So I will go ahead and get us started. So welcome to this month's Positive Parenting Practices webinar. Our topic is stress less during the holidays. And we're pleased to have you join us, and we hope that you will consider joining us for future conversations. We are going to continue these through into next year in 2021. And we are continuing to strive to make these monthly free opportunities to support parents in our community. I'm Rachel Segovia, the director of Lee Summit Cares. We are a nonprofit organization that seeks to mobilize community partners to develop a culture of physical and mental wellness for Lee Summit youth and families that inspires positive, healthy choices. You can learn more at our website, lscares.org. And just a few housekeeping items. You can access all of our webinars, which are recorded at our YouTube page, at Lee Summit Cares YouTube page, or on our website. Also, following today's presentation, you will get a survey link that will pop up and ask for your feedback. Please answer our very brief 10-question survey, and anyone who completes the evaluation will be entered into a drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card, which we will we will deliver by December 31st. And on that note, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Carrie Gray, our presenter.
All right, thank you very much, Rachel. Welcome. My name is Carrie Gray, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I work as a prevention manager for Rediscover, and I'm happy to provide these trainings in conjunction with Lee Summit Cares. And so, as Rachel said, our topic today is to stress less and increase joy. And I'm going to be giving you some tips for celebrating the holidays during a pandemic. And so we all know that 2020 has been a challenge, to say the least. I can't think of anything that has not been impacted by COVID. How we work has been impacted, how we socialize, how we live our daily lives, go to the grocery store, shop, get medical attention. All of these things have had a tremendous impact on us as individuals as well as on our loved ones. And so I thought it would be interesting just to start our discussion today by doing a poll. So it will be the three of us. And essentially we're looking at what has been the most challenging change to you and your loved ones with regards to COVID. And so if you want to take a minute, and you can certainly mark more than one, so you can mark all that apply. And so I'm trying to do this too, but maybe I can't do the poll because I am, okay. So we know that, there's been a lot of changes. There's a lot of uncertainty there. We know that people are fearful of spreading the virus to others. We don't want to be responsible for that. If you're a parent, virtual learning is probably on your mind. And certainly as a parent myself, I also look at just the experiences that our kids are having that they're not able to have. Just being kids is another big one. But it looks like we have, quite a bit of agreement on what is challenging. And what I see is that almost everything is a challenge right now. And that sounds about right. When you are experiencing prolonged stages or experiences of stress, it starts to wear and tear on your mental health as well as your physical health. And so today we're going to be talking about solutions. We're going to talk about what this process has on us and others, but also things that we can do about it that will help us to become more resilient through this challenging time. And so because we have a nice, small, intimate group, if you would like to ask questions at any time, just feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and comment. Otherwise, I'm just going to move through and I'm going to ask from your input from time to time. And so we all know that we're dealing with a great deal of stress. And when you think of COVID, sometimes it's helpful to think about the changes that we were all experiencing because of COVID. When we think of change, we can also think of loss. And so attachment really is centered on familiarity, doing your work the way you're accustomed to working, or gathering with friends and family the way you're accustomed to socializing, celebrating the holidays and traditions in the ways that you always have. And whenever things change, we lose that attachment to that familiarity. There's a level of comfort in that, a level of expectation. And so when that happens, it's difficult and it throws us a little off balance. And we might even start experiencing feelings of insecurity and just uncertainty, fear about the future, feeling a little bit threatened. And that is all a normal emotional response to that change that has taken place. Another thing that we need to look at is the meaning that we attach to things. When a person, for example, is forced to do their job, for example, in a different way, it might not be as satisfying to them. A person who normally is engaging and relating face to face with people on a regular basis is going to struggle to some degree, even if they're able to do that now through a screen. It's just not the same. And so one thing that we can help ourselves with when we think about these losses in terms of meaning is to think about the greater meaning and why we're doing this. We do know that the pandemic will end, if you will, at some point. We will return to some sort of new normal, air quotes, at some point in the future. And so when we think in terms of the greater meaning, we can choose to think that these are things that we're doing in the here and now to adapt so that from a work perspective, we can still provide a service that people need. And from a mental perspective, that we can be more flexible and adaptive in knowing that each day is probably going to bring a host of challenges. And the skill we're learning right now is how to be nimble and how to adapt in the face of those changes that seem to continue to happen. And when we think in terms of the big picture, we also know that we're doing all these things, such as, a lot of people are working from home. We're wearing masks. We're washing our hands regularly. We're physically distancing. We're staying home when we're sick because it's for the greater good to protect others. Now, the third piece of loss that's related to change is control. And this is probably the biggest piece that we struggle and grapple with as human beings, because we all need to feel a sense of control over our environment. And when we don't have control, it causes us to respond in what we refer to as a fight, flight, freeze type response, where we don't think very clearly and we look for ways in which we can reestablish some sort of control. And the silver lining here is that people who become resilient, meaning have that ability to bounce back from adversity, have that ability to continue to manage with less negative impacts on their mental health and physical health, find ways to assert some type of control, even within the context of a chaotic situation. And so as we go through this today, I'm going to give you ideas on how you can do that just in day-to-day living and how you choose to think about things, but also as you look at planning for a joyful holiday, looking at things that you can control and influence in a positive way. And so keep those 3 themes in mind as we continue to move forward and learn about how these themes impact our behaviors. And I am trying to get this thing to advance here and it doesn't want it. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to open up the unmute, if you will. And I would like to just take a minute. When we think of these losses, what are some of the responses that you've seen in other people, but also in yourself? And it could be behaviors you've seen, it could be emotions. What are you noticing?
I think it's just me, so I'll go ahead and comment.
Thank you,
pressure.
Susan. No pressure.
It's okay. It's all good. I was actually just talking about this with my mom today, that a lot of divisiveness about masks and the vaccine. Like, there's just a lot of divisiveness, a little bit of hostility, I think, from some people who have differing opinions. And myself, just maybe a little bit more anxious, because that third one, I am definitely more of a control person, and I like having control. And so just kind of maybe that anxiousness of the uncertainty and constant change and having to adapt pretty frequently is hard. So
Yeah. It's extremely exhausting and mentally challenging, to have to do those things. And, as you mentioned, there's just a lot of disagreement in some ways about how to COVID and what people need to do and are willing to do. And it is stressful to be even in a world with, living that context. When you go someplace and you have, for example, witnessing someone, a patron, being really mean or angry, letting that out at an innocent person who's only there to tell them these are the rules. And it's hard to see us as human beings relating to each other in that way. But you also touched on, other important and natural signs and symptoms of the stress overload that I think the majority of people are really experiencing right now. And so as you look at this slide, I want you to think of these signs and symptoms as your body's check engine light, all right? We don't want to ignore the check engine light, because our body, our emotions, our behavior, it's all telling us something that we need to pay attention to. And when we choose to ignore it or say, I don't have time to make me or self-care a priority, that's where the problem grows and gets bigger, and it's more difficult to turn it around, if you will. And so these are signs and symptoms that you need to be looking out for in yourself, as well as those around you. For example, if you have children. And so physically, because our mental health is directly tied to our physical health, we can't separate them. So when we're experiencing a stressful situation, oftentimes people experience tight muscles, headaches. They might get sick more often because perhaps they're not sleeping as well as they used to be. If we're feeling anxious, we might feel our heart beating more quickly, or even sometimes I notice in myself that I hold my breath when I'm feeling stressed out. And so all of these are symptoms and signs that your body is telling you, okay, something needs to change. We need to look at how we're managing this stressful situation and make some needed changes. As far as your mind goes, you've probably heard of the statement, the COVID fog, which really, because of the stress and because we are constantly in that fight, flight, freeze zone, when we're caught up in those stressful emotions, if you will, it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to concentrate, which then makes it hard to solve problems, which then leads into issues with being productive, which then can make a person feel bad because they're not being as productive as they'd like to be, but they're not sure what to do about it. And so it kind of creates a big, almost like a big spinning circle, if you will. But hang in there because we're going to talk about what to do about that. All right. Behaviors that we need to tune into would be things like insomnia. All right. Changes in eating patterns. Sometimes people eat to self-soothe. Sometimes people don't eat to try to get control. And the last one I want to point out here has to do with substance use or drinking more alcoholic beverages. Because if you look at, especially on social media and just ads, you're going to see a lot out there on sweatshirts, cups, and everything saying kind of wine or alcohol in whatever fashion is what's getting us through 2020. And naturally, there's some danger in that because one, people can easily become addicted and you don't always know if you're that person who's going to be vulnerable. The other thing is that when we're using a substance to deal with uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, situation, it's like putting a patch on a leaky roof. And so eventually that patch is going to fall apart and there's going to be even greater problems. And so we need to be aware of that. Aside from that, we look at measuring stress in terms of our emotions. And so you might joke that, gosh, in a period of, 15 minutes, I can feel joyful, anxious, angry, frustrated. It seems like we're just all over the place. And oftentimes those feelings are more pronounced because we've been living in them for a while now. And what we tend to feel and focus our attention on tends to grow. So we have to reprogram our brain away from that anxiety so that we can get some relief. And finally, the last one, of course, is relationships, which are difficult with physical distancing, but we know how important it is to be intentional and reaching out to other people just to check in to see how they're doing, to say, I care about you. And there's, thank goodness, I suppose, that we have the internet and a lot of different platforms in which we can connect with others, even if it's not the same as being there in person. And so if you're noticing, these signs and symptoms in yourself, don't ignore them. Look at what can you be doing differently to better manage that stress. All right. And our next slide is going to talk about things that you can start doing today. And so I'm going to encourage you. I know this is Merry Christmas and I don't want to offend anyone who celebrates different holidays, but I thought the reindeer was adorable and the mask was fitting. So that is why that is there. But here's the biggest thing that we can do to help ourselves become more resilient and have an enjoyable holiday experience is to, number one, develop a healthy holiday mindset. And so what that means is this, and this is the hardest thing probably for most of us in this, and that is to accept that things are different and plan accordingly. We just need to accept where we are and choose to adapt. Oftentimes, we put a great deal of energy into trying to control things that we have absolutely no control over. And when we do that, that only increases our stress and our anxiety. And so one way to let go of that suffering is to accept, here are the parameters we have to celebrate in, for example, and let's go ahead and plan accordingly. We're going to be proactive here. Now, within that context, we also need to talk about realistic expectations. No one is living their best life right now, at least no one I know, all right? People are stressed out. People are emotional. They're fearful about job security. They're worried about loved ones. Many people have lost loved ones. And then the holidays bring up even additional grief if you will, because the holidays are a special time. And so there could be different, this could be the first time celebrating a holiday without a loved one. And so we want to be, have and should, I shouldn't say, but it's a good idea to be aware of those feelings in ourselves and in others, and to know that we're exhausted. And so doing less is going to give you more this holiday season. Intentionally choose to do less. Here's an opportunity to learn to say no in terms of what is best for my family, what is best for my mental health, what I have energy for, what I don't have energy for. And if you're choosing to say yes to something because maybe you feel guilty, it's important for you to step back and reflect on that, because no one wants you showing up to do something or doing something when you're not really wanting to be there. And that resentment of saying yes when you truly need to say no starts to build over time. And so really think through what is realistic given the climate that we're in, and what do you need to do to take care of you and your loved ones, and focusing on doing less, not more, to compensate for the difficult time. Thinking about, those things, I guess I'll ask this question. When you think about the holidays, what's most important to you in celebrating the holidays? And I'm going to put an idea out there. For me, it's being in our pajamas as a family and just engaging in some activity that we enjoy. Could be anything. How about you two? I'm even going to ask Rachel to chime in.
I would say, spending time with family and just kind of keeping it simple.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about you, Susan? Do you have some thoughts on that?
It's the same, probably just family. Holidays to me mean family. So.
Yeah. And so it's simple, so it's a matter of being able to connect and spend time together, just doing simple things that we enjoy doing. So it doesn't have to be a big, extravagant, magical plan, if you will, because when it really gets down to it, it's just, I love these people. Let's have some fun together, right? And some of the best times we've had is just sitting at our kitchen table playing silly games or just sitting and talking. And so keep that in mind. What is truly the priority? Another thing you can do to help yourself experience more joy this holiday season is to actually schedule extra downtime just to do the things that you truly enjoy doing. What brings you peace and happiness during the holidays? For me, it's turning on the Christmas music, if you will, while I'm making cookies. And I just enjoy doing that. I'll put a fire in the fireplace. I'll even put an additional movie on, just that, creating that environment. So think about those things that you enjoy, and also giving yourself permission not to fret about the past or worry about the future. All right. Just giving yourself permission to be in the moment. And if you find yourself getting caught up in negativity, which is very common in stressful situations, we start to see the world through negative lenses. One of the things you can intentionally do there is focus each day on what you're grateful for. Even if the day was utterly chaotic and nothing went right, to be able to really look and find something that went well that you can focus your attention on. And so those are some ideas in terms of holiday mindset. How we think about approaching the holidays will have a huge impact on the amount of joy we get to experience. All right. And here's something else. I found this just a few days ago when I was preparing some information for another webinar. And it's the Good Morning, I Love You. It's a mindfulness ritual. And this is awesome. It's something that you can do for yourself every morning. And also something that you can do with your kids. And so if you would like to participate, please do. I'm going to go ahead and read the whole thing to you, and you can basically go through the steps as they are listed here. But how this works is essentially you place your hand on your heart and you want to focus your palm so that you can feel your heart pulsing through your chest. All right. So put your palm above your heart, really focus in on that palm so you can feel your heart beating. Feel how your heart is taking care of you, sending oxygen and nutrients to the trillions of cells in your body. The heart knows exactly how to care for you. You don't have to control it, even think about it, simply receive the nourishment. When you're ready, take a breath and say, good morning, and you put your name in there. So good morning, Carrie, or good morning, I love you, and your name. All right. And I made all of my daughters do this morning, and they just looked at me like I'm ridiculous, but we're going to continue to do it every morning. It's just an I love you ritual, and trust that you are planting the seeds of presence and compassion for yourself, and that these seeds will grow and strengthen the neuro substrates of self-love. Then you want to send these seeds of blessing out into the world, offering the phrase, good morning, I love you, to anyone who comes to mind. All right. So this is just a fun little mindfulness practice that you can do to work towards reminding yourself that you need to show yourself grace and compassion, not just during difficult times, but all the times. And so this is a simple way that you can start incorporating that into your daily routine. So have fun with it. All right. So let's get on with some more things that will help increase your joy. And now the goal here is that you pick things from this list that you know you need to do every day. But then think of, big picture things that you would like to do from time to time, so that you can plan for these things so they happen. So things that you enjoy. We know that in order to develop resilience, one of the things we need to do on an everyday basis is focus on the big three. And that is how we're nourishing our body with more healthy foods than sugary foods, which is hard during the holidays. And so moderation is the key. We also know that it's important to practice good sleep hygiene. And so an example of that is to get up and go to bed at the same time each day. We want to get away from the screens at least an hour before bedtime, because we know that if we're on a screen, it's going to prevent the melatonin that makes us drowsy from being released. And we also know that if we're scrolling through social media, we might see something there that makes us anxious. Or if we're watching the news, that could create more anxiety. And so think of things that you are already doing or that you can do to help slow down that routine and the routine for the others within your home, so that everyone gets an optimal night of sleep. And I do encourage you, depending on the age of your kids, to take that cell phone out of their room and put it in a central location to charge. Just say, I love you too much to argue, and you can have it back first thing in the morning. All right. We also know another thing that's wonderful for our mental health and our physical health is to get outdoors. We want to do that every day because it will help improve our outlook. And we know that exercising to the point of sweating for 30 minutes, 4 times a week, will have a tremendous beneficial impact on our health and our overall well-being. And so think of how you can get that movement and make it happen. Another thing that fits along with our COVID topic is to have some type of schedule, but allow it to be flexible. And so when the unexpected comes up, we need to be willing to adapt, if we will. And maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe you decide to go to Christmas in the parking lot because you're not moving, and it takes longer to get through that display than you planned. So your kids are perhaps up a little bit longer. So maybe we let them sleep in just a little bit longer, if they can, the next day. But having some flexibility. We don't want to be rigid. We want to be flexible. And then, of course, connecting with other people in a way that you feel safe. You'll just keep hearing that over and over again. And while I was researching this, I learned of some different apps that you can use where you can get together with about 10 people and do online games and lots of fun stuff. So I'll be sharing those here in just a little bit. And so we're going to keep that in mind. So how do you help your own feelings? How do you help your kids, with their own feelings of loss and disappointment, and that we can't celebrate the way we used to? And so you can't fix it for them, but you can learn that they're going to be okay with those feelings. And so there's basically a 3-step process. The first is just to validate that it's hard. It's hard. It's lonely, not being able to do our trip that we normally do and spend the holidays like we normally do. It makes me feel sad too. And I can tell that you're feeling sad. So we just want to validate what they're feeling, give them a hug and let them know it's hard, you're not alone, but you're going to be okay. The second step then, after we validate, is to start thinking of some other creative ways that we can celebrate. So given these parameters of what we can and can't do, let's try to take some control back in the situation. And so what ideas do you have as a family? And just having everyone be a part of that brainstorming solution, because then they'll start own it and it'll make it fun, and you might even develop new traditions as a result. And so once you decide on some things, then obviously the next step is to plan so putting dates on the calendar for when you're going to do something. For example, we're getting ready to go out to Powell Gardens next week, and you need to buy a ticket in advance. And then you get to be outdoors and you can walk through the displays. I hear it's a fun time. It's a great visual display. And so figuring out what you need to do to make those things happen, because we need to know that a lot of other people are out there doing the same thing, trying to find, different safe ways to celebrate. And so those are some thoughts on just how to deal with, that disappointment. And we're going to wrap up by just talking about things that you can do around town. You may have already done these things if you're a Lee Summit person. We know Christmas in the park is one opportunity that's out here. And I guess it was last night that Patrick Mahomes and his fiance were at Christmas in the park here in Lee Summit. And so could you imagine being the volunteer at the end, collecting donations and noticing that? Anyway, so everybody needs their holiday separation or celebration. And that's a fun one if you haven't already done that. And so that's over by the Longview Community Center. Another thing is, of course, family game night. And so this is where I would love to hear some of your ideas on some of the games that your family really enjoys playing, partly for selfish reasons, because I'm always looking for new ideas. And so I'm going to share something that I found, and then I'll pass it on to you folks. But here's something that you can do, especially with little kids. This is a good Rachel thing. And Susan, I don't know how old your kids are, but there's a website called Radish Kids, RADDISH. And it's where the kids get the recipes and things almost like Stay Fresh or whatever that is called. where the kids could then do a cooking lesson for the parents, which could be lots of fun. Also, you can do a virtual movie night, and you can do that with up to 10 friends or family members. And that can be done through an app called Teleparty, which was formerly Netflix Party. And so there you go, some virtual movie watching. For game night, there's an app called House Party, and where you can do a video chat. I don't know if any of you have done any of these. I have not, where the games are built in to the whole program. And so they're already there, and you can kind of choose what games you want to play. And then there's two more. One is Kahoot, which is an educational app that's very popular on places like Common Sense Media. And it can host also up to 10 people. And then the last one that I saw was Draw-A-Saurus. All right, Draw-A-Saurus is like a Pictionary type game where family members can play and solve those puzzles together. And so venturing out beyond your standard board games, if you want to go beyond your bubble within your home, those are some ideas for doing that. And so what are some other games and things that you all like to do?
We do a lot of board games like Uno, Click Clack. We just started Pictionary. Yeah, we're a big, and we just started learning chess because, well, I think it's been somewhat inspired by the Queen's Gambit.
It's a wonderful game, wonderful movie or series. That's awesome. How about you, Susan? Is your family into, playing games and doing things like that, or do you spend time together in a different way?
Well, my kids are 5 and 3.
Oh, perfect.
So they're little. They like, what's it called? Crazy Eights. They love that game.
Okay.
We played that, and I've been trying to find more and trying to establish like a Friday family game night. I actually work for Parents as Teachers here in Lee Summit.
Oh,
and
fabulous.
We started a YouTube channel too.
Okay.
And one of the topics on there, one of our parent educators did a whole series on different fun games that are developmentally appropriate by age. So that's a great resource to check out too. Since we typically work from, kiddos that are prenatal to 5. So that's kind of more the range that you're going to see on there, but it's a great resource as well that people can check out.
Wow. So how would they access that resource, Susan? Do they go ahead?
Sorry, I'm pretty sure it's Lee Summit Parents as Teachers YouTube. The same if you would just Google Lee Summit Cares YouTube. Same thing, Lee Summit Parents as Teachers YouTube.
Okay.
And there are videos that all of our parent educators have been posting, and one of them is from our parent educator Jen Smith.
Okay.
With a series of different game nights depending on age.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a resource. So Susan, we'll pass that on, let people know about that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's look at our next thing that I want to bring up is really, it doesn't really apply in your situations with the age of your kids, but I know a lot of us are dealing with having the tweens, the teenagers home. And we know from mental health reports that everybody is suffering. We know that our teens are exceptionally vulnerable just because of their brain development, and that they're talking about the feelings of loneliness and isolation and how difficult it is. If it were up to me, I would create I don't even know what it would be, like a pen pal between the local nursing homes and the teenagers in the community to help really support and reach out to each other. But the thing that I like to stress here with parents is that we do need to make it okay for them to be spending time online. So, because that is the way in which they are connecting with their friends, but also have expectations for, parameters for when the technology needs to go away, so it's not unreasonable to say, okay, we're going to have family time now, the phones are going to go away. But just helping them to have that balance and to help them to stay connected as best they can with their friends, so that isolation doesn't get overwhelming to them. And so then this one, kids are really going to like this one. Giving your kids the gift of responsibility this holiday season. And so using this as an opportunity to develop their soft skills. And I did a whole workshop on this, the family team. And so I won't get into it all now, but we know that our kids become resilient as well as self-confident and good problem solvers and helpful when they are making contributions to the home. And so looking at ways that you can really kind of share the load this holiday season while recognizing that with kids as young as your kids are, they may not be tremendously helpful yet, but keep that in mind that you're really paving the way for them to become helpers and for you to give them the high fives and show that appreciation for them pitching in the best they can in different areas. And so these are some of the ideas that I had for how kids that are younger all through high school could help to pitch in. And the idea is as they get older, we want to give them more responsibility as they prepare to leave the nest and, move into life in the real world, if you will. And so that's an idea to think about. You might like this more than them. Then we have family movie night. And if you're not already aware of the website Common Sense Media, it's awesome. And they constantly put out family holiday movies for everyone, a lot of, just evaluations on what's out there and what's best, kind of like what you were talking about, Susan, with the games, like developmentally, what would be the best options for these different age groups. So be sure to check them out. And then, of course, I hope that you all have some crafters in your home, because there are many things that you can do, even with materials in your own home, to do just fun, simple crafts as a family. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say having that quality time and working on a project together does wonderful things for the relationship. And so that's truly, as we said earlier, what is so important this holiday season are the people in our lives, our friends and our loved ones, and just finding ways to continue to celebrate in ways which we can be together, even if it looks different this year. All right, so check out Pinterest, and I imagine, Susan, does parents and teachers have resources out there as well with regards to holiday crafts and things like that?
Yes, we do. So we also have a Facebook page, Lisa and Parents as Teachers. A lot of times we'll post different like fine motor activities on there. Not so much probably holiday themed, just, in an effort to be
Sure.
more inclusive, but maybe more like winter themed, those kinds of things. But for sure, our Facebook page is a great resource for that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I always, like to tell, just always wrap up and just affirming that, life is very difficult for everyone right now. And I think something positive that's come out of COVID is that we are talking more about mental health. And so if you or someone who listens to this recording, is struggling, I provide here some of those crisis hotline numbers so that people don't have to suffer in silence, but that they reach out and get the help they need. And I know that a lot of counseling centers are providing virtual sessions, telehealth, and ways of still connecting. So if there's people who are concerned about safety, they can get connected that way. And so that is all I have for this webinar today. And so I hope you get to walk away with something, a glimmer of new information that will help you over the holidays to have more joy, if you will. Excuse me.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you in January. Thanks, Susan. We appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Susan.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.